bravely endorsed him. And so we're hoping that the same thing is going to happen now with Penny and Senator Sanders. So I brought her as a good luck piece. The second time I was here was the last time during the primary. And at that point, I got a chance to really spend some time in Iowa. And I went all across the state. And I have to say, you guys really moved me by the fact that you were so knowledgeable and the fact that you were so enthusiastic and passionate, and it made me fall in love with America all over again. This is what the country is about, and in talking to the people that I've talked to so far, in the women's groups that I've been to today, we all have the same problems. We all are terrified about what's happening to our environment. We all are aware of the crisis in terms of health care. I'm not going to go into all the details. The senator will go through much more brilliantly, but it's very clear in terms of economic justice, racial justice, social justice, health care, and especially the environment, that this is the make it or break it election. And we are looking to Iowa. This is such an important state. I'm heartened by the fact that so many people are on the ground knocking on doors and helping to give information that the mainstream media either is suppressing or corrupting or misrepresenting. It's so important, because when people know and when they hear the senator's policies, when they see his track record, when they know how authentic he is and how he has been fighting for these issues for so long, he is the only one that has that reputation. He is not someone who used to be a Republican. He is not someone who used to take money or still takes money from Wall Street. He is the real deal. And that's why this is it. We don't have time for incremental change. We don't have time for middle ground. And I'm sure that as people who live off the land, as people who see the crises in various communities, and people who are thinking for themselves, you understand that this is the moment we have to stand up and be counted and bring people in. And I want to thank you as a New Yorker for leading the way. I want to thank you for my grandchildren. Thank you. Oh, now I'm supposed to say, is he ready? Is the senator ready? Here he comes, the man of the hour, the man that we want to hear, that we're really here to hear from, Senator Bernie Sanders, the real deal.
He's going to sing a Bernie song.
Okay.
That's what they want me to do, so that's what I'll do. Make a short version of it, right, David? All right, turn it up a little bit. And I was feeling the burn. I was feeling the burn. Maybe, just maybe, enough already. Baby, I'm feeling the burn. They call it class warfare. Baby, that sounds good to me. But the 1/10 of the 1%, man, they've been on a hell of a spree. We had the class to nicely ask for people's shoes, feeling the burn. I was feeling the burn. Maybe, just maybe, enough already. Baby, I'm feeling the burn.
That is great. Hey, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Uh, 2016.
All right. That is a beautiful song. All right. I think we'll put it on our social media. Hey, Dave. Delighted to be here. I want to thank everybody for coming. Let me introduce, we don't often get our whole family to hit the road together. I think many of you know Jane.
Hi.
Got both of my sons here. Lev, come on up. Levy. Lev. We got Dave. And the star of our show is Dylan, my grandson. Let me begin. Jane, you want to hold this? Earlier, we did a meeting in Davenport, and there was a little poster up there, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it, which said it all, I thought. It was a quote from Nelson Mandela. And what it said is, "It always seems impossible until it is done." Always seems impossible until it is done. And that speaks to the fact that what today seems so extreme, so unachievable, when people stand together and make it happen, people look back and they say, well, of course, what's the big deal? And that is the story of history in America. It was impossible to form labor unions until working people stood together and said, we are not animals, we're human beings, and we're going to engage in collective bargaining. Impossible until it happened. It was impossible for women to get the votes, to be able to go to college, to be able to do the work that they wanted to do, not to be relegated to housework and having babies. All of that change was impossible until it happened, because millions of women stood up and said, we will not become second-class citizens. We will not stay second-class citizens. We want all of the rights we are entitled to. It was impossible. It was impossible to end segregation in America. It was impossible to end lynching in America. It was impossible for all people, regardless of the color of their skin, to vote until it happened, because millions of people, black and white, stood up and demanded that it happen. It was not only impossible, because this is more contemporary, but unthinkable that 20, 30 years ago, when anyone would say if you are gay in America, you would have the legal right to get married. It was impossible, unthinkable, beyond belief, until it happened, because the gay community and their straight allies demanded that people have the right to get married regardless of their gender. It is always impossible until millions of people stand together, until we change consciousness, until we demand fundamental changes in our society. Now, I was here, and I want to thank Dave. Where's Dave? Hey, Dave, come here. I want to thank Dave Johnson, because, and his wife, I don't know where.
She's over there.
There she is, waving in the back. When we first were thinking way back when, in 2015, right?
Right.
Whether we should run or not, and nobody in Iowa knew who I was and so forth, Dave was one of the very first to come forward. And we had a small meeting, I think, that you put together, 15, 20 people. And I just wanted to thank Dave for telling me that we can come to Iowa, and it's not impossible that we could walk away with half of the delegates at the caucus. All right? So where we are now is to defy those people who tell us that our vision for America is too wild and it's too extreme and it's not achievable. And our job is to understand that everything we stand for is achievable and it is possible. And I'll give you just a few examples of the progress that we have made over the last few years in moving in that direction. 4 years ago, and I was right here in this beautiful garden 4 years ago, and I said, you know what, in America, if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. Because we should raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. And we were criticized up and down in every national editorial board, paper, every editorial it is too extreme. The minimum wage is $7.25 an hour nationally. You can't raise it to 15. Do you know what's happened over the last 4 years? Because the American people and workers all over this country have stood up. What's happened is that 7 states have now passed a $15 an hour minimum wage, and the U.S. House of Representatives last month. It was impossible, but you in Iowa helped make it happen. You were the first state in the country to say, you know what? That's not such a crazy idea. People need at least a decent minimum wage in order to have the dignity and the security that they are entitled to. Thank you, Iowa, for doing that. 4 years ago, we came here with another impossible idea. We said that maybe in America, when we talk about free public education, it's not good enough to talk about K through 12. We got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Oh, Bernie, that's an impossible idea. You can't do that. Do you know what's happened over the last 4 years? In California, New York State, in Tennessee, all over the country. That is precisely the direction in which communities are moving. New York University Medical School is now tuition free. All right? What was impossible is now possible because we made it happen. 4 years ago, I was here and I said, you know, it seems pretty crazy to me. There were millions of people who are struggling financially with huge student debt. For what crime did they commit? Because they wanted to get a higher education. Should they be oppressed financially decade after decade? Just saw a guy earlier this morning, Davenport, and he said, I'm worried they're going to garnish my Social Security checks in order to pay off my student debt. Can you believe that? This is not unusual. All right. 4 years ago, when we talked about addressing the crisis of student debt, it was just an unspeakable, impossible idea. All over America, that is exactly what people are talking about today. And when we are in the White House, we're going to cancel all student debt in America. And we're going to do that by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation. 4 years ago, I brought an issue here to Iowa. It was the first time it had been discussed in a very, very long time in America. And I said, you know, it seems to me, and I think it seems to the American people, the people of Iowa, that health care is a human right, not a privilege. Well, once again, we were told that this was an extreme idea. It was a wild idea. It's an impossible idea. And once again, this is my promise to you, that together we will make health care for all through a Medicare single-payer system, not an impossible dream, but the reality of the health care system in America. So I say all of that to tell you about some of the progress that we've made just over the last 4 years. And now we have to take our struggle to fruition. We made a good start, and now we got to take that ball over the goal line. And I want to say a word about health care. You are living in a nation today where the major function of the health care system is not to provide quality care to all, but it is to make billions of dollars in profit for the insurance companies and the drug companies. So today, the reality of our dysfunctional, irrational, and greedy healthcare system is that 87 million Americans, including many of you here, are uninsured or underinsured. Underinsured with high deductibles, high copayments, high premiums. Today in America, 30,000 people die every single year because they cannot afford to go to the doctor when they should. Unbelievably, today in America, 500,000 people go bankrupt because they have had cancer or heart disease or diabetes or some serious illness that they cannot afford to pay their outrageously high health care bills. And I want you to take a step back and think about it. 500,000 people become financially ruined every single year. For what? Because they suffered with cancer or heart disease or a serious illness. That is not what a civilized democratic society is about, and together we are going to change that. Now, while so many people are uninsured or underinsured, while we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, while 30,000 people die each year, while 500,000 people go bankrupt, there's another side of the coin. And that is, last year, the healthcare industry made $100 billion in profits. It is blood money. Woman just yelled out blood money. That's exactly what it is. 30,000 people die because they can't go to a doctor. 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the prescription drugs their doctors prescribe. Some of them will die. And the drug companies made $69 billion, and the insurance companies made $23 billion last year. What we believe and what will become reality is that health care is a human right, that the function of a sane, rational health care system is to provide health care to every man, woman, and child in a cost-effective way, which is what Medicare for All does. People are sick and tired. People are sick and tired of a health care system designed to make huge profits for the industry when they're spending 15 or 20% of their limited incomes on health care. So today, let me just say this. Last year, the industry made $100 billion in profits. 1% of that is $1 billion. You will see, and you are already seeing on television, all these ads about how terrible Medicare for All is. And they'll be attacking me personally, no doubt about it. But I believe that in Iowa, I believe that in New Hampshire, and I believe that all over this country, the American people are prepared to stand up to the greed of the drug companies, the greed of the insurance companies, and tell them that the function of healthcare is not to make billions for the healthcare industry. The function of healthcare is to provide quality care to all of our people. That is our struggle, and we will succeed. And people tell you that what we're talking about is complicated, it's disruptive. It ain't complicated, and it is not disruptive. Way back in 1965, was that 54 years ago, President Lyndon Johnson and the Democratic Congress had the guts to pass Medicare. And today, Medicare is by far the most popular health insurance program in America. All that we are trying to do are two things. Number one, we are going to expand Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses. And number two, we are going to expand Medicare, extend Medicare, which is now for people 65. In year one, it goes down to 55. Doesn't seem so complicated to me. You know, a lot less complicated, these 180-page bills, you know, they come in 10 years or whatever they come in. Very simple procedure. First year we go to 55, then we go to 45, then we go to 35. We cover every man, woman, and child. Okay? And for, I suspect, everybody here today, and the vast majority of the people, the amount of money you will be paying on health care under Medicare for All will be significantly less than it is today. Right now, we are spending twice as much per person as the people in Canada. And in Canada, when you got a heart transplant, you got out of the hospital, you know what the bill is? Nothing. You go to any doctor you want. You go to any hospital you want. No out-of-pocket expense, no premiums, no deductibles. It's a simple system. And people are sick and tired of having their doctors and their nurses having to check with the insurance companies of whether they could do this procedure or whether they could do that procedure. People are sick and tired of arguing with insurance companies over the phone about whether they're covered for this procedure or that procedure. We want a simple system, a cost-effective system, a comprehensive system that provides quality care for all, and that is what Medicare for All will do. A couple of more issues I just want to say a word on, and that is one can never and must never forget that when Donald Trump tells us that climate change is a hoax, Donald Trump is dangerously, dangerously wrong. And all of you know, and this is going to impact agriculture here in Iowa and around the world. It's going to impact our way of life all over the world. Scientists tell us that we have less than 12 years to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel and into energy efficiency and sustainable energy, or there will be irreparable damage done to our planet. Irreparable damage. That means your kids and your grandchildren will likely be living in a nation and in a world which will become increasingly unhealthy, increasingly uninhabitable, with more drought, more floods, more rising sea levels, more acidification of the ocean, more migrations of people in search of water and land that they can till. We have a moral responsibility to lead the world on this issue. And as your president, my job will be not to deny the reality of climate change, but to bring the countries of the world together to fight our common enemy. Now, I have a dream. You know, I got a dream out there that maybe it's unachievable. I don't know. But right now, we are spending as a world about $1.5 trillion on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other. $1.5 trillion. As President of the United States, my job will to bring the countries of the world together, Russia, China, India, Latin America, Africa, all over the world, to say that maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.5 trillion to kill each other, why don't we pool our resources and use that money to fight our common enemy, which is climate change. So we have got a lot of work in front of us. Obviously, our first task is to make sure that we defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. And I have a feeling that there are a lot of people in Iowa, even conservatives, even Republicans, who understand that there is something wrong when we have a president who, among other attributes, is a pathological liar. All right, we try to set, all of us as parents, try to become an example for our kids. And the example that we want to show in America is that we have leadership which is honest. You may disagree with that leadership, but not leadership which is lying every single day, not leadership which is racist or sexist or xenophobic or homophobic or religiously bigoted. That's not asking, that's a pretty low bar, you know, but I think we should achieve at least that. So we have here, so our job is twofold. Number one, we have got to beat Trump. And number two, and by the way, I'm really happy to tell you that in the last year, I believe every credible national poll has me far ahead of Donald Trump. All right? You know, polls go up and down and take them with a grain of salt, but last two polls nationally had us 7 and 9 points ahead of Trump. All right? So that's our job number one. But our job number two is not just to beat Trump, but is to transform this country. And you are looking at an unprecedented campaign in modern American history which says that we are prepared to take on Wall Street because we're going to break up these huge financial institutions that have had such a negative impact on the United States. We are going to take on the insurance industry and move health care to Medicare for all. We're going to take on the pharmaceutical industry. And not only are we going to lower drug prices in America on the Medicare for all, nobody pays more than $200 a year in cost for the medicine they need. Whether they like it or not, we're going to be taking on the fossil fuel industry because we cannot allow their short-term profits to destroy this planet. We are going to lead the fight for criminal justice reform. We're not going to continue to have more people in jail than any other country. We are going to end the demonization of undocumented people in this country and move to comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And I know this is a sensitive issue here in Iowa, but I happen to believe that it is the women of this country who should control their bodies, not politicians at a state house or in Washington. So let me just conclude by saying, going back to what Mandela said, everything is impossible. Let me get the right quote here. It's always seems impossible until it is done. And the day is going to come when you're going to sit down with your kids or your grandchildren, and that little one is going to say to you, Grandma, don't really tell me there was once a time in America where people couldn't go to the doctor because they couldn't afford it. Don't really tell me, Grandma, don't tell me a whopper here that people actually went bankrupt in America because they got very sick. That can't be. Grandma, that can't be. I can't imagine that there would be a time in America where that could happen. Don't tell me, Grandma, that we once had a president who denied the reality of climate change and allowed terrible things to happen all over this planet. Don't tell me, Grandma, that we had a time when we had a president who demonized folks, poor people who were immigrants in this country. Don't tell me, Grandma or Grandpa, that there was once a time in America where 3 people owned more wealth than the bottom half of America. Don't tell me that, Grandpa. And our job is to make sure that our grandkids ask us those questions, because we are going to transform this country. But to do it, Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, said something. I'm paraphrasing him now. And what he said is that progress never takes place without struggle. You know, you're not going to grow a crop unless you plant the seeds. And anyone who thinks we can do all these wonderful things without taking on powerful special interest just does not know how politics works. So I need your help to win the Democratic nomination. We need your help to defeat Trump, but we need your help to do something else. And that is to take on Wall Street, the insurance companies, the drug companies, the fossil fuel industry, the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, and that is quite a crew of characters. All right, that's what we're up against. Are you prepared to go forward to help us transform this country? All right, that's what it's about. And we can't sit it out. The stakes are too high. So let us go forward. Let us win here in Iowa. And I want to thank our Iowa team and Dave and all the other folks who have made this event possible. We've got a great team. We got just a tremendous grassroots organization, you know. And we're going to win here in Iowa. We're going to run TV ads and radio ads and all these other things. All right, we're going to waste a lot of money doing that. But at the end of the day, the way you win in a state like Iowa or Vermont is you knock on doors and you talk to your coworkers, your family, and your friends, and you drag them out to the caucus. That's how we win, and that's how we will win. So thank you all very much for the support you've given us. Let's go forward together. Let's beat Trump. Let's transform America. Thank you.
Got some book for you. Go out and shake some hands here. How are we going to do this? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
Actually, just a bit. So, Bernie, I know you're going to be at some point stuck in O'Hare Airport. Because that is the nature
Yeah, like
of things.
last night. Okay.
So I wanted to give you something uniquely Iowan. This is a book from an Iowan, and it might help that time in O'Hare Airport go a little bit better.
Thank you very much.